The script made me cry twice actually when I read it, and I remember thinking that it was so moving on the page, and there was certain ways it was written made me think that Clint was going to do it in the way that I kind of saw it in my mind too.
What's going on, family from Train Dreams? Thanks for coming in today. First question is going to be for Clint Bentley. I can now address him as Academy Award nominee. Clint Bentley, you've changed a lot since last year.
Thank you.
Letting it go to your head, I see.
My head barely fit through the door.
So, you know, if you don't mind me describing the movie this way, when people ask me about it, I said, you know, imagine if Up was made into like a real life movie, and there's a guy in it that you love, but a lot of bad things happen to him. But it's quite beautiful at times.
Really dark Up.
And very dark Up. But can you talk about just wanting to do this and adapt this this novel?
Yeah, I love Dennis Johnson's writing dearly, and this was actually the first book of his that I came into interaction with back when it initially came out, and when it came back around the time post Jockey to like think about adapting it when it was coming together, I was blown away by the story itself and how beautiful it is, and how it eulogizes this really unsung type of character that we don't see a story made about just a regular person that often, and not you know, not in a way that's demeaning or anything. It really like leans into the magic and the beauty of just a regular life, which I think is something that we need a bit more of. And so that really struck me. And then just the film, even though it was dealing with this character who lived in the first half of the 20th century, the story felt so resonant to so many things that we're going through today, in terms of how fast technology is moving, how quickly we feel like kind of left behind in the world that we're inhabiting.
Yeah, thank you. Joel, been great in so many films that very different characters. Black Mass, Loving being my favorite of yours, until now, Train Dreams. You just surpassed that. But tell me about playing this man who is very quiet and reserved. Everything that is great about the performance is like worn on your face, and then executed through a lot of crying later on. I don't want to spoil anything for anyone, but it really is. It's heartbreaking. It looks exhausting.
I think there's something extraordinary about everybody's life, and I think we all see ourselves as ordinary in many ways, that we don't leave a mark on history, and yet I think everybody's life is a story, one hopefully long story, and it's filled with, you know, all sorts of highs and lows, and joys and tragedies, and the film is very life affirming to me, and it was a great task to undertake, to play Robert, and you know, and as much as some of the most significant things that drew me into the film were facing my greatest fears because I'm a father, and you know, around the birth of my kids, I remember feeling what it would be like to lose them, and it's a tough thing to think about. But to go to work and challenge myself to do that was interesting, and I see the film as very hopeful in that, you know, I think we like to avoid darker feelings, and you know, we like to forget our grief, and we look at grief as something to move on from very quickly. But I think the film, in a nice way, can remind people it's okay to remember your grief, and therefore to remember the people that you've lost. And just like the forests in the film, as they're destroyed, they grow back with a real elegance and delicacy and a beauty and become more green and more lush, that I think people's lives can evolve beyond grief and tragedy. And so the film to me shows me how resilient the ordinary person is.
Thank you. Felicity Jones. You are simultaneously the greatest joy of the movie and then the greatest heartbreak, and you really ride that pendulum because of, you know, again, not giving spoilers, but just of what transpires. Can you talk about how depicting a real woman, but not also the infallible woman. Obviously, you are perfect for him, but you're not a perfect person either. Can you talk about building that character?
Yeah, it was really key. We had lots of conversations about this. Just, what is this woman doing when her husband is away? Like, how is she surviving? And it was quite fascinating reading about these early American settlers. I mean, they were so incredibly hardy. And she's basically running this farm single-handedly, having to fish, having to make the contraption that's going to help her fish. She's a hunter, she's shooting, and it was just finding those moments where we could, just to show this whole world that is operating. And it was just, I think that's what was so appealing about the script, is it was a sort of return to this time where we didn't have, go into a supermarket and you can buy whatever you want. There's a real, there's something just incredibly, in this world of massive technological change, it's the age of the machine, to be telling a story about something that is very simple and understanding like where have we come from in order to understand where the hell we're going.
Thank you. It's very beautiful. Bill Macy. I told someone here, I said, Bill Macy still got it when they asked me about the movie. And then they told me this terrible rumor that it's coming up on the 30-year anniversary of Fargo, and I don't believe that, because I'm only 20 now, so I saw it back
Yeah,
then.
it was recent.
I think you know that's not true either. But the fact that you, with so little screen time, I think it's a masterclass. It really is such an impactful moment. Can you talk about still being this amazing at the age of 25 and how you can continue to build such dynamic, interesting characters?
Luck. Luck. Thanks for the job. It's a great script. Arn Peoples, he's a great character. He's funny and he's profound, and I think we all share this. The dialogue is so much fun. It sort of speaks itself. I mean, you just love to say these words. It's got a different cadence. It's a little bit older, and it's an actor's piece. It really is. I mean, it lived and died with us, and it sort of celebrates actors. It lets us do what we do best. Thank you for that, but I'm mostly lucky.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Kerry Condon, I believe we're living in a renaissance of Kerry Condon movies now, and I love it. Coming after F1, and now we have Train Dreams. You're busy, stay busy forever. But this character comes later in the film, makes her mark, and doesn't go for the traditional trope that we thought a character like her would enter a movie such as this. It's so hard to talk about this without spoiling things, but it really serves a purpose in terms of giving us insight into Robert. Can you talk about getting the script and saying yes to this and why you wanted to do it?
Yeah, I got the script while I was filming F1. There was a break where there was time to do it, and the script made me cry twice actually when I read it, and I remember thinking that it was so moving on the page, and there was certain ways it was written made me think that Clint was going to do it in the way that I kind of saw it in my mind too, just from certain sentences and stuff, and the way I could see that you saw nature and saw the characters. And I wanted to be in it because I just loved the movie as a whole. It didn't really matter that the part was only going to take up a couple of days to shoot. It was like, I've always wanted to be one of those actors who's like, you know, a character actor and then just being in things that you're really proud of. I mean, it's a real luxury. Obviously, you know, if you can afford to have that, sometimes you just have to work for money, you know, too. Yeah. So this was one that I just loved it, and I wanted to do it because as a whole, I thought it was so beautiful.
When you say it twice, it feels like too little. I feel like I cried a lot like throughout because it's so powerful and so emotional, but you know, you try to find the sense of hope in the end, and it really does. That end sequence is probably just not healthy for people who need a good cry at the moment. I have a question for you, Clint, because you've worked a lot with Greg over the years, and this movie in a lot of ways feels like Clint and Greg's Avengers, because then we get some Paul Schneider in there, we got Clifton Collins Jr. So you were like assembled everyone that you really liked, and you were like, let's go do a movie together. Is that what the kind of
You think this is up, and now it's
it's their Avengers of their filmography?
I was thinking about it as Fast and the Furious 7.
Yeah.
Actually. No, it was such a joy. I think every person we brought on to a new role, starting with Joel and then Felicity and then bringing everybody around them, I was just pinching myself the entire time, because whether it's somebody like these actors here who we've been talking to, or Paul Schneider, or John Deal, or Clifton, I knew obviously from Jockey and Trans Pecos, but like, just, I was such a fan as the first person seeing them in this little 10-inch monitor, and I was just pinching myself the entire time that I had the great fortune to work with such an incredible ensemble. I still don't believe it.
Actually, someone who isn't here, but I need all of you to give me an answer. Adolfo, your cinematographer, like, makes you all look amazing. Like,
Beautiful.
where did you find him, and is he here for a bit? Like, this is incredible work.
We're going to see him on the next stop, I think. But he is, it's funny because when I was going to make Jockey, it's just one of these things that you don't know how life is going to take you. But I was going to make Jockey, and I'd been talking to a DP for that for a long time, and it ended up not working out. And then I asked like 5 different DPs to do it, who I knew, and none of them could do it for some reason. And then we were going to push to like the next year, and before we did that, Greg and I went on the internet and just did a search of like, okay, who's available, who we liked, and I'd seen some documentary work Adolfo had done. And he did this amazing documentary where he was just in Tibet with a camera and like filming people in caves with a fire, and it looked like fucking Caravaggio paintings. It was amazing. And I was like, he can do that.
Whoa.
Like, he's amazing. And he'd only done a couple features, and at that point, and we just hit it off very quickly. And yeah, I'm very lucky to work with him. I think he's incredible, and yeah.
He, from an outsider's perspective, well, from being inside the film, but watching the relationship between Clint and Adolfo, and I've seen a lot of directors work very harmoniously with their DPs, and some not so. But for all of the harmonious versions of that, these guys felt like they were kind of shared like a siblings, kind of two halves of one brain at times, where whether it's their history together or their shared sensibility and the amount of time they've spent together, their ability to kind of understand what each other needed at a time where Clint was willing to let Adolfo free and not hover over him too much. I thought the relationship was one of the most special director-DP dynamics I'd ever been around.
I feel like it feels like Chivo and Bruno Delbonnel had a kid. It's Adolfo, and we just didn't know that they're here now, and it's really incredible work. I have a question for Bill and Joel. I write a lot about diversity in movies, and oftentimes when we talk about it, I feel like we're all talking about different things. And I'm talking about, this movie is a perfect example of what I talk about. Diversity isn't just about like skin color, ethnicity. It's about what happens when a man is in the middle of a transitional period in America, that no one ever has seen this story told or feel that their story is being seen. I feel like now that is a diversity that we talk about a lot. Did you see it that way, as a story that we hardly ever get to see, or that's never been told?
I thought it's interesting that you say that. I mean, I found it interesting, the courage to put on screen a story that isn't classically a dynamic hero story. I feel like what I identified with the character is that I think we read books and we watch movies about characters who are saving the world or being super active, heroic in the classic sense. But I think there's the actual protagonists that we all are in life are often not in control of situations. The world pushes us around. We're dictated by various things, our culture, our socioeconomic class, our gender, our sexuality. We're often just placed in a situation and we don't feel like we've got the steering wheel. And so there's something heroic in being pushed around by the world and absorbing the blows. And that's what I thought was quite interesting of this as a protagonist, and not a typical protagonist. But at that time when, you know, there was this push towards the West to kind of dominate this country, and you know, we see various aspects of that too, of cultural kind of colonialism, I guess, but it's background stuff to a degree. But in this dynamic sort of push to make change and get things happening, there are all these people that were just jostling for their place, you know.
Bill, did you want to add anything?
It is refreshing to see a normal Joe as the star of the movie. And we were talking about it earlier, but the world's view of America, to a certain extent, was cowboys and Indians and the Wild West. And this is turn of the century, so it's a more truthful look at the American character, and it's still a stunning character. These folks in this film work so hard, and they're so stoical, and they are so optimistic, and they bounce back. It's a good story to tell to make that the star of the movie.
Thank you.
Well done.
Question for the ladies. It's a two-parter. One is that we see two different variations of women depicted at this time through both of you that we don't get to see a lot. One they're both independent, but they're both respected by Robert in the film, and they really have this their own command of who they are, and they know who they are, which we don't see too often in period pieces such as this. So could you just speak to that? And the second part is, you both have had amazing leading men in other films, Eddie Redmayne, Colin Farrell. How does Joel compare to them?
I'd like to hear this.
Yeah.
No competition.
I mean, you said about the resilience of your character because she was kind of left on her own, right? Like when he was gone. And mine was that she had a life. You know, she had been a nurse in the war, and she'd had a husband. So there was a kind of a sense of, you know, she'd lived, I suppose, and had experienced loss and things like that. What was the second part of the question? Oh, Joel and
How does Joel compare?
Yeah, I know. How can I forget?
They're leading men.
I'm gonna let
Don't. Do you know, it was only because in the script it was like he's supposed to think that he feels like Claire, he knew her for a really long time. And I have known Joel. I was like a teenager when we first worked together. So that was another kind of reason why I wanted to do the movie. I was like, oh my God, this is like meant to be. I'm meant to be this person. Like, we hadn't worked together since that.
We worked together in 2003.
Jesus, was it 2003?
Yeah.
Oh, you guys think that's a long time?
Just been over Fargo, guys.
I think there's
Felicity, you
something-
go, yeah.
I think there's something in this film, though, with all the characters, that it captures that thing in life that most of us, you're just muddling along. You know, you're trying to do your best and you're trying to figure things out, and actually you think you have control, but in the big scheme of things, you have so little control. And I think through all the characters, you get a sense of that. It's just a portrait of trying to make life work the best you can.
Awesome. And Clint, final word to you. What do you want people to take away from Train Dreams? What do you want people to know about it?
I think if anything, you know, we've talked around it a little bit, but it is just the celebration of a single life, and I think it's in a way that's maybe universal enough that by looking at this one man's life as he kind of tries to make sense of how it all came together, I wanted it to be an ode to the people in my life and the people that we all know who lead just like a good, quiet, solid life, and an ode to the magic in that, and the beauty in that, and it's not taking anything away from it. That no history book's going to be written about them.
Mission accomplished. Thank you for coming in, and I can't wait for everyone to see the film.